So the next stage, which is to actually sew on your button. Okay, so what I've got here is a thick needle. Ideally what I would have is a toothpick, but I don't have one today, so I'm using this instead. I've also then got an appropriately sized hand sewing needle, and I mean appropriate because your fabric is quite fine, which means I certainly wouldn't be sewing with this needle. As you can see, that's got kind of a spear end on it. That's for something completely different. Okay, so I've threaded up my needle with some thread, and I'm now going to actually, so it's going to be a double thread. So take the two ends together, smooth the two ends together, and tie a knot. And there we go. So once you've got your little knot, just snip it off a wee bit. Snip off so you don't have a big end going there. Grand. Okay, so lining up with where your buttonhole is and where you've made your buttonhole, on the opposite end of your fabric, again, make sure you're supporting your fabric by putting your interfacing or your gauze like I'm using. Just fold that over again, and then make sure that, whenever you cross these over to button them, that, because we're going to make it like just a miniature cuff as such, that they're going to be in the right side. Okay, what I mean by that is that you're not putting your fusible in the wrong place, and you're going to end up doing that. Okay, so just make sure it's in the right place. If you're using fusible interfacing, obviously yours won't blow away in the wind. Okay. So whenever you're reading a paper pattern, this is how you'll see where a buttonhole is to be placed. I'm going to place mine in the white just to show you. So on a paper pattern, an X will literally mark the spot of where you're going to place your button. Now, this is my button to be sewn on, but just set it aside for now, because the first thing you actually want to do is anchor your thread so that it doesn't come away. So I'm going to take the needle in through the back of the fabric and get it coming out the front. Okay, and take it, and as it comes out, just make sure that you hold it with your fingertips so that it doesn't go anywhere. Okay, and then back in, and you want to do that a couple of times just to make sure that it's not gonna come out. Okay, it's what I call anchoring. You see, like, no hands there, and that's nice and solid. Now you can drop the button, oops, wrong way. Now you can drop the button onto the needle and set it in place. Okay, and you're holding it, I'm left-handed, so you're holding it with whatever, you're holding the button with whatever hand you don't write with. Okay, and you've got your needle in the hand that you do write with. Now if I just go in and out as is, with nothing to give it any room for movement, really, whenever I'm opening and closing my garment, it's going to be an awful lot of effort to get the button into the buttonhole. So this is when your cocktail stick comes in handy. This is going to give it what you call some slack. Okay, so this is fiddly, but it's worth it. Okay, so what I'm now going to do is take the thread over to the other hole. So this is a 4-hole button. So for just, if you have, just do a 2-hole for the start. So I'm just passing this over, and okay, grand. And now I'm just going to do it to the other side as well, down the bottom. So I'm kind of finding my way of where those O's are to get in. There we go, we're in now, and there we go. And again, just like the buttonhole, I would practice sewing on a button a couple of times as well, but if you do use this method of sewing on a button, believe me, it will not come off. So I'm not going to do that too many times. Now, the amount of times you want to do that is appropriate to what garment you're sewing. So now what I've given myself here is a little bit of room for moving. Okay, I've actually created a shank. I will be creating a shank. So I'm now going to take that off. Okay, And what I've done there is actually created some room for movement for the button. So you see the little extra bit of space? That means that the other piece of fabric has now actually got room to get through and go under. If I hadn't have put over the cocktail stick or the needle as such, then that would have been so tight to the fabric that it would have been really, really hard to move. So as it stands, that's sewing on a flat button. Okay, now what I'm going to do is to finish off this demonstration is to show you how to make a shank. Now, I don't have a button to show you this, but for example, in an Aran cardigan, sometimes in the old kind of leather buttons, you would have had a little loop at the bottom. That's a shank, and again, that gives plenty of room for the fabric to get over and under. So this is what we're going to do. At this minute, your button's on the front and your thread is on the back, okay? So you're going to take your needle and you're going to pass it from the back just over to where in between where the button is. Okay, and take it out. So you didn't bring it the whole way through the holes. And you take it out. Now, again, I'm left-handed here, so this may look slightly strange, but what you want to do is you're now going to create a loop. So you're going to put your fingertip here, and you're going to pass your thread underneath and then through here. And what you're doing then is you're pulling here and you're creating a knot. Okay, now so if you're right-handed, it's going to be like this. Okay, your thread will go underneath here, in through this, and pull it out. Okay, so I'm back to being left-handed here. So you're going to do that a couple of times. Again, all depends on the fabric that you're using and the garment that you're making. So for example, if you're making a big camel coat, you may want to do this, I'd say, about 8 times. Okay, just to make sure that it absolutely does not come off. And there we go as well. Okay, so really kind of pulling on that, and that has made that nice and sturdy. Okay, so just to finish off the button, and then take the thread from the center, pass it through to the back. Okay, it's getting passed through the back now. Okay, and then what you can do, because it was a double thread that you made in the first place, just snip off there at the needle, split your 2 threads, and tie a knot in that one, and then also tie a double knot. And believe me, this will not come off. Other things you can do when sewing on a buttonhole is wax your thread. That makes it even stronger as well. So there's your button on. Now you could have also, just for the design purposes, went from this hole to this hole, so you were making an X mark. Okay, so just let's check to make sure that this works. Again, you can see underneath that I've supported my button. Makes it nice and strong. So in we go. Yeah, it's all passing through nice and neatly. That's us. And let's check, make sure everything's okay. And there is our little button and our buttonhole. Okay, it is a thing of beauty, honestly. I enjoyed making that this morning. So pause the video at any stage if you need to, and just let me know how you felt about that tutorial. Always much room for improvement, especially the camera angles, but there you go. So that's your little button. You also can sew a button on with the machine. To be honest, in my opinion, it's more hassle than it's worth. I would only do it if I had about 50 buttonholes to sew on. I just find it quite dangerous, to be honest, because the needle goes so fast and it's so close to the holes that if it missed the hole, it could go in and break the button, and obviously, you know, ricochet off and hit you in the face. So we don't really want that. Nice, safe sewing, please. Okay, folks. So there is your button and your buttonhole tutorial. Enjoy. Happy sewing.